Hello there. One of the most common questions I get asked is how you can tell whether or not your media is left leaning or right leaning. And it's a really simple measure that you can use, but it has a lot of interesting ramifications. And one of the first things you need to be really aware of is what your biases are, because you might be leaning a certain way and feel that media is leaning the other way because it's not on the exact same page you are. But that doesn't mean that they're not left or right leaning. The general rule of thumb to use, though, is whether or not it deals with individuals or whether or not it deals with societal changes. Individual changes and responsibility are very much a right wing ideology, and societal changes are very much a left wing ideology. And if you have a look at something like tax policies from our parties, you can see full well that the right wing tend to be going for individual tax cuts for individual benefit, the left wing tends to be going for larger tax cuts or tax changes for societal benefit. And there's no real wrong answer here when it comes down to what you want. It's entirely your choice. What's really interesting, though, is how our media pushes really specific talking points. And the area that's the most right leaning is crime reporting for a couple of reasons. The first is that crime is one of those things that engages people, it engages readers, but it engages voters as well. It makes us feel unsafe when we hear about what's going on, and that feeling of unsafeness is how political parties start pushing their own narrative about being tough on crime. We've seen it over many, many years. In fact, there was this story that came out over the weekend from Radio New Zealand that looked at a report that was commissioned in the late 20 teens into what our media is doing wrong and how they report crime, because it pushes that really bad crime narrative that doesn't necessarily match up with what's happening within society. And a great example of that is that rhetoric on tough on crime, soaring crime rates, and the country's out of control. But if you have a look at the actual crime statistics, it's been steadily declining for a number of years. There was a whole bunch of different myths that they identified in this report that our media push, like the fact that severe penalties are effective deterrents to crime, or that restorative justice is a soft option on crime, or that the average typical victim of crime is going to be a young white middle class woman. It's a whole bunch of mythologizing that causes issues that one particular group of politicians is really good at pushing and promoting. And because they push and promote it, it becomes newsworthy. The media picks up on it and pushes that narrative again. It is a right wing media machine that's been very carefully honed over a number of decades. But it's also a really good reminder of why you need to make sure you do the research around the claims that are being made from politicians and politics as we go into the election. Because there will be a whole bunch of really emotive arguments. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're based on fact.